Keith Aaron Michael was born on October 3, 1981 in Martinsburg, West Virginia, in the City Hospital in Martinsburg. He is currently married to Jessica Michael, and they have been married for almost 3 years. They have a daughter named Morgan, who just recently turned a year old. He has remained in his original area of service due to the fact that he is in the Air National Guard. During high school, he worked at a local Kmart, and he also worked at Oak Barn, a furniture store. He enlisted when he was 17, halfway through his senior year in high school. Mr. Michael decided to enlist as a personal choice. He decided to enlist because he got into the Air Force Academy to go to college, but then he decided the Air Force Academy wasn't for him. He didn't want to go there for 4 years and be committed to active duty for 5 more years afterwards. He always had a feeling of wanting to serve his country and also wanted the benefits that came with it. He joined the West Virginia Air National Guard to help get his college education paid for. He chose to be in the Air Force because it is treated like a business, and there are set standards and skills that one has to follow. He chose the Air Force because there were people in his life growing up from the nearby base.
Our families had some great uncles who have served and that were drafted during World War II, including one that was drafted to be in the Army Corps that served in the Air Force portion of the Army before.
He started out as Airman Basic E1 when he first joined. However, as soon as he graduated high school, he was automatically promoted to Airman First Class E3. He was able to move up through the ranks very quickly. This was a very positive motivation for him. Mr. Michael's highest rank was E6, Technical Sergeant, until recently he got a promotion to Second Lieutenant, maybe even First Lieutenant.
How long did it take for you to get through your training?
It took my initial basic training. I went and left home in the beginning of July, and I didn't get home until November. So that's almost 6 months that I was gone. And then there have been many follow-on trainings ever since then. Probably, if you add them all up, probably another year to year and a half additional training ever since that initial basic training. It's follow-on training, Airman Leadership Training, NCO Academy, all that would be included. And it's base training. As you move up the ranks, you're always in a state of learning.
What was your training like?
Basic training was not fun. They like to yell at you, but it's all designed to make you perform a skilled job in a stressful environment. So you can't really take anything personally that they're yelling at you, but they're teaching you very tedious tasks, and they explain everything, and they give you a manual that tells you exactly how to do everything. They just try to make it as stressful as possible. And what it does is it teaches you to basically perform in a war environment. Everything that happens in a war environment, bombs going off around you, machine gun fire, you still have to perform your job, and that's what basic training does. So the training was very difficult, very stressful, especially for someone coming out of high school and having your parents basically do everything for you. To going straight into that environment was a big culture shock for me, but they teach you how to get through it, and the Air Force does a very good job of doing that.
Did you have any specialized training? If so, what?
Yes, I'm specialized as air medical evacuation, health service administration specialist. So I'm basically, I get to track and monitor air missions for air medical evacuation. So I help keep up on all our flyers that fly in the back of the aircraft to take care of all our patients, get the patient paperwork squared away, working out with the front enders, the pilots and the aircraft commanders on making sure that our people are taken care of and what hops they're going to be making across the different locations they're going to be stopping and picking up patients. So I have a lot of different roles I can play, and it's kind of skilled, and the training that I had, my follow-on training from basic training, taught me how to do all that.
Because of his positions, he was put in danger. When he made a stop at Afghanistan and one at Qadar, they were attacked with indirect fire. They had to evacuate and run to a bunker, while some things were exploding around them. Those 2 times were the closest he got to frontline action. Mr. Michael says military life is somewhat different from being back at home. He says it was about learning his place and knowing where he fitted, and also being able to take orders and instructions from the people above him. He explains how it takes a great amount of trust in the people ranked above him. Living back and forth between his civilian life and his military life has given him some issues in returning to his family and friends compared to his friends.
I've served in Germany. I've served in a country called Qatar. I've served in Andrews Air Force Base, Scott Air Force Base in Illinois, and Travis Air Force Base out in California.
What was your trip like to get to those places?
The most difficult, obviously, was all the way into the Middle East. It's a very long trip. The military does a very good job of scheduling rotator missions, so that we actually fly on commercial flights all the way into where we were going. And just a long flight. We flew 7 hours to Ireland, and then an additional 7 hours from Ireland down into the Middle East. So it was back to back, and as soon as we got there, we started right away into working and everything. So it was kind of hard to adjust to the time difference and traveling for that long. But in most cases, all my travels with the Air Force have gone very smooth.
He worked 6 days a week while he was deployed. He worked a 12-hour shift each day, making him have to get up early in the morning. He worked from the hours of 7 in the morning until 7 at night. While he was there, he got up at 6 in the morning so he could go to a bathroom because there were no bathrooms nearby, or Cadillacs as they were called there. He had to put on his uniform and either went on a bus or carpooled in a few vehicles so they could get to the work center. When they got to the work center, they got right to work on their day's mission. While he was deployed, he didn't really see any action in his position. They were constantly moving patients away from the action, so they really didn't get much of it. There is a team called AELT that worked on the front lines more. So he has never been on that team. During his deployment, Mr. Michael has done many different duties and jobs. As duty controller, he tracked and monitored aerovac missions, including flights going in and out. As unit deployment manager, he was in charge of making sure all their personnel got in and out of the theater and tracking their travel. Also, he made sure they had the proper gear in case they were attacked. Being duty controller was a stressful job for him. He had to coordinate with the front end, the command post, the aerovac team, the patients, the casualty center, and the staging facility so they got the patients out of the theater at the correct time and not have it delayed. Along with this, he had to make sure missions started at the proper time. He was constantly worried because whether or not the patient survives depends on whether he does his job right or not. He has been on a total of 3 deployments. In every deployment, he has made some new friends, who are normally in the Air National Guard. It is nice for him to meet new long-term friends that he still stays in contact with. He ran into a lot of the same people because Aerovac is a small part of the Air Force. He's always having a close group of friends while deploying, as well as making new ones. While he was deployed, he communicated with his family mostly through telephone calls. In his most recent deployment, he got to use Skype to communicate with his wife and daughter. Sometimes seeing them on Skype made things harder for him, though. The internet connection wasn't that good, and he couldn't physically be with them. He got frustrated when he had a time picked out to go on Skype and the internet wouldn't be working. Usually he talked on the phone with his wife, Jess, once a week. In doing this, it made it a little easier on him. During his free time, Mr. Michael did different things. For most of his free time, he was either surfing the internet, trying to Skype, or working out. While he was deployed, he worked out 2 hours a day. He focused in on that because Air Force is big on everyone being healthy. Once or twice a week, he would go to watch a movie. He also got to watch famous people perform for free while he was over there, which he found quite entertaining. However, they did have a job.
Operation Enduring Freedom is to ensure that America is staying safe from terrorists. So Enduring Freedom is any activities inside the United States and outside the United States that is protecting us from future terrorist attacks. So it's taking the war to the enemy is how the Air Force describes it. So Enduring Freedom is making sure that the freedom that is protected here in the United States, because we're overseas fighting and taking the war to the terrorists where they live and everything, and making sure that they don't have a chance to organize and ever invoke another 9/11 onto this country.
Mr. Michael was deployed with the 379 Aerovac Command Cell. which was in the Middle East. He was deployed for 120 days, but until he got his transportation in and out, it was about 134 days in total. He had a good experience while he was there. He believes deployments are about the people you are deployed with, and on this deployment it was a very smart group. He went along with his home station commander. During his deployment, he was the unit deployment manager. He got them over there and then back again. He enjoyed his job but missed his family while he was away. On his deployment for the 775 Expedition Aeromedical Evacuation Flight, he was the duty controller. He was located at Andrews Air Force Base. He moved a lot of patients while he was deployed over there. The main patients that he remembers are the ones who are in the worst condition. He wasn't out flying much, but he was planning the missions, taking care of the paperwork for the mission, planning for the crews as they moved around, working with the front end and command posts, and also being in charge of other duty controllers. He gathers information such as patient paperwork, where stops are, how long they'll be at a stop, who they transport, and what they'll do with the patients at the stop, from a system known as traces. He also tracks the actual flight. He had to make smooth transitions for the crew and patients and constantly coordinating everything. The 167 Aeromedical Evacuation Squadron is his home station airback. He has been with them for over 12 years. He was just selected as the officer to work at the medical clinic there. Right now he is the NCOIC, which makes him in charge of the orderly room and also being the manager of the functional area training. This means he is in charge of training plans for the admin and the documentation. Another part of his job is making sure that the people underneath him keep on task. On the first deployment with the 375th, in Operation Enduring Freedom, he was at the command cell that was out of Andrews Air Force Base. He was a part of the provisional. All the medical admin reported back to him, and he would give the reports to TACC. He also had to travel back and forth between 3 locations: Andrews Evacuation Operation Team, Scotts Air Force Base, and one over at Travis. The first time he came home from being deployed, he just had to filter back into normal life. The second time he came home and had to get readjusted to being a husband. The third time he came back home to his wife and newly born daughter. It was a big adjustment for him because he needed to take care of his family and he had been out of practice for a while. Currently, Mr. Michael has served for a little over 12 years. He is planning to be in for at least 10 more years, so he can retire as an officer. Since he just got offered an officer position, he estimated that he'll be in at least 23 years before he decides to retire. He was recently promoted to a new position. That position is Medical Service Corps Officer. He'll be in charge of medical readiness and EMEDS. In medical readiness, he'll make sure that the squadron is prepared for a medical emergency or in case there is a bomb threat. It's a different job, but he plans to remain friends with those he met before. He stayed in contact with Captain Jeremy Browning a lot. The two have a lot in common and became friends quickly. He plans to stay in contact with him for a long time. He learned to not take friends and other simple things for granted. He has learned to appreciate the little things due to his deployment. It has taught him to enjoy what we have in America and not to get upset about little things. Since coming back from being deployed, he has learned the value of family. He also learned not to take freedom of speech and freedom of religion.
I've received several awards, including one that's kind of pending right now, which would be one of my largest accomplishments, and that's the Air Force Accommodation Medal. So there's a package in. It has not been officially approved and signed yet, but a package was submitted on my last rotation. Also, the Global War on Terrorism Medal, the Expeditionary Global War on Terrorism, the Expeditionary Deployed Medal, the one where I was activated for being a civilian Air National Guard member into an active duty billet. I've won the Air Force Achievement Medal. I have a bunch. I can't go through them all in my head right now, but it's not. I don't do my job for the medals or anything. The recognition is nice and it's appreciated, but you do it for the people around you, and in my career field, you do it for the patients that you serve and everything. And the awards and stuff that come with it, those are nice and they're just tacked on, but it's the feeling of doing a good job is the true reward.